Everyone is talking about whether or not the Clarity Act will pass, but nobody is telling you what actually happens to your XRP the moment it does. Today, I am going to break down the 5 hidden mechanisms inside this bill that could fundamentally change what your XRP is worth and what it can do. And the 5th one, the one nobody is covering, that is the one that could trigger the biggest move in XRP history. Stay right here. Right now, the XRP community is stuck in a loop. Every single day, you open YouTube, you open Twitter, and you see the same thing. Will the Clarity Act pass? When will the Clarity Act pass? Skinny bill, rider bill, must pass bill. February 15th, April 10th, September. And then you see XRP sitting at around $1.32 today, and you are wondering why nothing is moving. Here is the problem. You are being given the political drama, but nobody is breaking down what is actually inside this bill that directly impacts your bag. Not the politics, not the left versus right fighting. The actual legal text and the institutional mechanisms that are already being built behind the scenes right now, while everyone else is distracted by headlines. Because here is what I have discovered after going deep into the Clarity Act draft, the Senate Banking Committee amendments, and the institutional moves happening in the background. There are 5 specific mechanisms inside and around this legislation that most XRP creators are completely ignoring. And when you understand all 5 of them together, you will see why the smart money is not panicking during this dip. They are positioning. Let me break it all down for you. Before I get into this, do me a favor. Smash that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me how many XRP you are holding through this dip. And subscribe if you want daily XRP breakdowns that actually go deeper than the surface level headlines. Now let us get into it. The first thing nobody is explaining properly is the non-ancillary classification inside the Clarity Act draft. Here is what this means in plain English. The bill contains a provision that says if any units of a token were the principal asset of an exchange-traded product by January 1st, 2026, that token is automatically classified as non-ancillary. Non-ancillary means it is not a security, period. It is exempt from SEC disclosure requirements. Now think about that for a second. XRP had multiple spot ETFs approved and launched in 2025. The Franklin Templeton XRP ETF, the Canary Capital filing, these products existed before the January 1st, 2026 cutoff. That means if this provision passes as written, XRP does not need to go through any additional decentralization test. It does not need to prove anything to the SEC. It is grandfathered in as a commodity by law, not by court ruling, not by settlement, by federal statute. And that distinction matters enormously because a court ruling can be challenged. A settlement can be relitigated, but a federal law, that is permanent. That is the floodgate that institutions have been waiting for. Every compliance department at every major bank and hedge fund that has been sitting on the sidelines saying we need more clarity, this gives them the green light. And here is the part that should really get your attention. This same provision only covers a handful of assets. We are talking about XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Dogecoin, Litecoin, Hedera, and Chainlink. That is it. Every other crypto project gets left in regulatory limbo, which means capital does not spread thin across thousands of tokens. It concentrates into these 8 assets. And XRP, with its institutional infrastructure already built, is positioned to capture a disproportionate share of that capital flow. The second mechanism is something that happened back in December 2025 that most people glossed over. Ripple received conditional approval from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency for a national bank charter. They are building what is called the Ripple National Trust Bank. Now, why does this matter? Because right now, when Ripple processes cross-border payments through their on-demand liquidity system, they still rely on third-party banking relationships. They are at the mercy of correspondent banks who charge fees, create delays, and can cut off access at any time. With a national bank charter, Ripple becomes its own bank. They can hold RLUSD reserves directly. They can apply for a Federal Reserve master account. And if they get that master account, that means Ripple would have direct access to the Federal Reserve payment system, the same system that JP Morgan uses, the same system that Bank of America uses. Think about what that means for XRP. You have the token that powers the fastest cross-border settlement network on the planet, and the company behind it is about to have the same banking privileges as the largest financial institutions in the world. That is not speculation. That is a conditional approval already granted by a federal regulator, and the Clarity Act passing would accelerate the full approval timeline dramatically. If this is making sense to you and you are starting to see the bigger picture, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, do you think Ripple getting a bank charter is more important than the Clarity Act itself? I want to hear your take, and make sure you subscribe because tomorrow I am covering something even bigger. The third mechanism is RLUSD, and this is where things start to get really interesting. Most people think of RLUSD as just another stablecoin. It is not. Let me show you what has been happening. In January 2026, Ripple provided $150 million in financing to LMAX Group, one of the largest institutional trading venues in the world. LMAX processed $8.2 trillion in institutional trading volume last year, and the deal integrates RLUSD as a core collateral and settlement asset across their entire exchange infrastructure. Then Ripple launched Ripple Treasury, a product built on their $1 billion acquisition of GT Treasury, which has over 4 decades of experience servicing Fortune 500 companies. This platform lets corporations manage traditional cash and digital assets in one system, settling cross-border payments in 3 to 5 seconds using RLUSD instead of waiting 3 to 5 business days through traditional bank wires. And it does not stop there. Ripple partnered with MasterCard, Gemini, and WebBank to settle credit card transactions using RLUSD on the XRP ledger. That is one of the first times a regulated US bank has used a public blockchain and a stablecoin to settle real-world card payments. Now here is the connection that most people are missing. Every single RLUSD transaction on the XRP ledger burns XRP as a network fee. More RLUSD adoption means more XRP burned. More XRP burned means deflationary pressure on the supply. And when you combine that with increasing institutional demand from the ETFs, you have a supply squeeze building in the background that nobody is talking about. RLUSD market cap has already surpassed $1.4 billion in just over a year. It is the third largest US regulated stablecoin. BlackRock and VanEck selected RLUSD as a redemption rail for tokenized treasury funds. This is not a crypto sideshow. This is becoming core financial infrastructure. Mechanism number 4. XRP ETFs have already attracted over $1.37 billion in cumulative net inflows by mid-January 2026. Now, $1.37 billion might sound like a lot, but here is the context that matters. Standard Chartered, one of the most respected banks in the world, has projected that XRP ETFs will attract between $4 and $8 billion in total inflows throughout 2026. Their year-end price target, based on that projection, is $8 per XRP. Now think about what happens when capital flows into an XRP ETF. The fund has to actually buy and hold XRP. That removes tokens from circulating supply. $4 billion in ETF inflows at current prices would remove roughly 3 billion XRP from circulation. 8 billion in inflows would remove approximately 6 billion tokens. That is 10% of the circulating supply locked up in institutional vaults. And here is where the Clarity Act connects directly to this. Right now, many institutional allocators and registered investment advisors cannot recommend XRP to clients because of residual regulatory uncertainty. Even though the SEC case settled, compliance departments want federal statutory clarity, not just case law. The Clarity Act provides exactly that. The moment it passes, the advisory channel opens up, and that is where the real volume comes from. Not retail, not day traders, pension funds, endowments, sovereign wealth funds, and family offices that manage trillions of dollars. When that dam breaks, 1.37 billion in ETF inflows will look like a rounding error. And now mechanism number 5. This is the one I told you about at the beginning, the one nobody else is covering. And it is arguably the most important of all. Ripple just secured a full electronic money institution license in Luxembourg from the CSF, which is Luxembourg's financial regulator. This is not a preliminary approval, this is the full license. This means Ripple can now expand Ripple payments across the entire European Union. At the same time, RLUSD has been recognized by regulators in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and is launching in Japan through SBI Holdings, Ripple's strongest Asian partner. Japan alone accounts for more than half of Ripple's global on-demand liquidity volume. Now combine all of this together. In the United States, you have the Clarity Act about to codify XRP as a commodity. You have Ripple building a nationally chartered bank. You have RLUSD embedded into MasterCard settlements and LMAX institutional trading. You have ETF inflows accelerating. And simultaneously, Ripple is locking in regulatory approvals and institutional partnerships across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific. This is not a single catalyst event. This is a coordinated global infrastructure build-out happening across every major financial jurisdiction on Earth at the same time. And the Clarity Act is the final domino, because the moment the United States provides statutory clarity, every other jurisdiction that has been waiting to see what America does will accelerate their own adoption timelines. The institutions are not waiting for the Clarity Act to pass before they start building. They have already built the infrastructure. They are waiting for the Clarity Act to pass so they can turn it on. That is the part they are not telling you. Everyone is focused on whether the bill passes in February or April or September. But the real story is what has already been built behind the scenes. The infrastructure is ready, the partnerships are signed, the licenses are granted, the ETFs are live, the bank charter is conditional, the only missing piece is the federal law, and when that piece clicks into place, everything activates simultaneously. Now I want to be clear. I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I am simply showing you the publicly available information that most creators are not connecting together. You need to do your own research and make your own decisions. But if you found value in this breakdown, smash that like button so hard your phone cracks. Drop a comment telling me which of these 5 mechanisms surprised you the most. And subscribe right now because I cover XRP news every single day, and I promise you, you will not find this level of depth anywhere else. I will see you in the next one.